It's amazing how the silence can speak to us. I went back in-house because at that time, a good friend of mine there was going part-time. And she called and was like, "We need another half of me." And I was like, "Well, to be back in the kids' school and okay, I'll do that." So it was kind of like always shaping it around my family. My husband traveled a lot and what worked for the family. And just sort of in the back of my mind, I always say it was like a little itch that just kept getting, you know, more prominent that I had to scratch. But I wasn't sure. I just didn't know what I was going to do. And it was when my daughter was in kindergarten, I'm like, now I'm going to figure out the thing. And I got a coach
Okay, so you
for
got
a career coach. And that was interesting, but it didn't really help. I was like, maybe I'll do mediation. Maybe I'll do. I ultimately didn't do anything. I stayed. I stayed where I was for 14 years. I stayed, or 12 more years at the pharmaceutical company. Um, the what happened for me was COVID. Yeah. So COVID was my the forced pause in my life and all of our lives that I personally needed, and it just came, at a time where my children were a little bit older. My daughter was in sixth grade, and that it gave me an opportunity to have time to really reflect. I had almost left 3 years before that. I almost kind of thought about leaving, and then I had sort of a health issue that really scared me. And I was super grateful to have my job at the time. My husband was away and traveling a lot, and I was really, really grateful to have something to take my mind off it. So it was like sometimes it just kept, and I had a great boss too at the time, and I stayed. But it came to a point where, yeah, I started doing. I hated meditation and yoga before. Tried it at in-house, we had a gym, and I remember going down for a class and I got corrected in pigeon. Now I know it's adjusted. And like the meditation, my to-do list at home was here and my to-do list, for the office. And I literally was like, when I got corrected, I was like, I'm out of here. And I like left. I was like, if I can't do this right, I'm, like that perfection.
about
Um,
perfectionism, right?
yeah. And so I left. But it was during COVID that I read something, and we weren't thinking rationally, that if you could hold your breath for 15 seconds, then it meant you didn't have COVID. And we all kind of went in with a little bit of a cold. And so I started doing that. And when I did that, I was like, okay, I feel a little bit calmer right now. Like I really needed something for my anxiety at the time. And as our phones do, it was listening to me, and I just increased it a little bit. And a meditation course, came through that was nothing like I had tried before. It was called the Ziva meditation, and it was, I think it's Emily Fletcher, and she called it like meditation for lazy people. And I was like, what is that about? And it just really, the way that she taught it and delivered it, it just worked for me. And so I started that. I had started yoga. I should say, I should like circle back. I did start taking yoga. When I didn't like that, it was years later in 2019 that I started yoga, where I teach now at Lifetime, and that was different. It was like hit plus yoga that was my gateway drug, as I say, because I like to exercise and move. If I'm going to take the time, like that's always been my well being thing. But moving, I don't want to slow down. So I tried that, and I loved it. I was like, what is this? And there was no mirrors. The teacher, we don't really model unless, we need to, because it's about not getting your body in the pose, but your pose in the body. And I was like, this is great. This is fantastic. And I remember they taught us this, what I now know is this ujjayi breath and the fire breathing. And I went back, we had a standing legal meeting on Tuesdays with our group. And I was like, oh my God, we all have to learn this fire breathing. This is going to help us with these clients. He's like, what's fire breathing? I'm like, I learned it in this yoga class. It's awesome. So I got into yoga that way, and then I actually signed up for yoga teacher training just to deepen my practice. I wasn't. at all. And I wasn't even telling anybody that I was doing it. And it was going to be in March. And I remember I had a business trip scheduled there, and I was like, oh, the first classes. And then, of course, we had the shutdown. And so it was during COVID then that I started this meditation on the lowdown. Like I wasn't telling my family I was doing it either, because I'm like, they're going to think, you know, what are they going to think? Um, and that it's amazing how the silence can speak to us is really what happened for me. Um, and I always say it was a little bit of the fear of the unknown, which kept me where I was for so long. That became less than the fear of staying. And yeah, and I did a program, a personal development program called Lifebook that looked at like 12 categories of your life, not just the career, and that changed everything for me. It was like looking at your physical, well-being, your intellectual, your emotional, and it was really interesting because my physical was like fine, and that really informed then what I ended up doing. I mean, if you had asked me back then, I wouldn't have been able to, connect all these dots. But looking at that more holistically, that really changed things. And actually, after that program, I didn't leave my job right away. I actually sort of not doubled down, but I was like, I've been doing this kind of part time. Maybe I need to do this more, like really dedicate myself. And my boss that I had loved, she had left. And then I was like, I could become the price reporting person and know all the regs and do the thing. And so I actually, people were like, this is great. Kara used to be part time. Now she's available all the time, because it's COVID. And so that was for 6 months. I tried that. And then I did some more, like, kind of deep thinking. I'm like, this is just, I'm doing the same thing. And so I left in September 2020
And
with
just
no
stop
plan.
with no
I
plan.
stopped with no plan. Um, I don't necessarily recommend that unless like unless I mean I was fortunate to be able to do that. Um, but I didn't have a plan. The day after I left the yoga teacher training that they were doing a cohort, the first one online. And I didn't even think about it twice. Which is unlike me.